Okay, next question. How do I respond again in love, grace, and truth when I see that my kids have bitterness toward me and bring up things from my past? I've asked for forgiveness, but they just keep bringing it up.
Yes. So I have quite a funny things to say about that. I have this moment where I remember I was as a kid, and we had a dog, and there was my parents had visitors over, and there was meat that we usually give to the dog, which was on the left side on the fridge, and the right side, that's the meat my mom used to cook. I just know I went in there and I thought it was the other way around, and it was like big filet mignons and everything else, and I just fed them all to my dog, and he was the happiest camper. He didn't know he was eating. He was just flesh. He would just eat it. And so I'm going up in my stairs in my bedroom, and I'm there, and I hear my mom coming up the stairs. And the way she walked upstairs, I know something is wrong, because she sounded like an elephant. She opened the door, and then she says, "I just want you to know, you're the dumbest son I've ever born." She shut the door. I just about died laughing. I died laughing. I said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I never took it personal. I just thought my mom, sometimes she has these volcano eruptions. It's funny. But for years, it was so out of the ordinary for my mom to say such a thing that we thought it was funny, but my mom always felt like really like this is really not good. And then years ago, she said to me, "Marcus, can you do me a favor? Just never bring that up again." I said, "Okay, I won't." And I haven't. But part of the process is, if you have bitterness, you can't laugh about things, right? So, and sometimes in that process, maybe you're through it, but the other person who did the stupid thing is not through it yet. These particular issues are, kids are bitter to their parents for so many things. I've asked my kids, and they tell me stories I didn't even remember, but I said, "I'm so sorry," when they told me. And so these are the things is, give yourself the permission to ask, and make sure that they will have things that they will tell you. They will, and if you are humble and say, "I am so sorry," not defend yourself, "I'm so sorry that happened. That is not what I ever desired and wanted." Walk through the process. Make sure that make them feel valued. Let's say you've done all that and it comes bringing up again. Sit down again and say, "Okay, remember when we sat down? Tell me, what more do you need? What more do you need? Because your heart hasn't heard yet my heart. So help me understand, what more do you need?" "Well, I don't need anything." "Well, why do you bring it up?" "Well, I just think it just fit the purpose," or whatever it is, right? Then maybe it's time to, then a conversation, okay, what does forgiveness look like? What would forgiveness look like? And then have conversations about forgiveness, not about what you did or they did, but about forgiveness. What does forgiveness really look like? Have a conversation, and then bring up the conversation. If you don't know what forgiveness looks like, ask some of us. Forgiveness looks like, when I ask for forgiveness, that means the moment I ask, it will never be brought up again. I can never bring it up, as even to make my point, I can't bring it up. So, and that becomes a definition. So when you and your kids agree on that definition, then you say, "And if that happens, then I can call you out that this is not what we do anymore," right? "Yes, okay." And then that process comes to healing. If that continues on doing, you're not going to bully your kid into, "Shut up, you can't say that anymore." Then you're just playing that demonic game. You're trying to do earthly answer with instead of a heavenly answer. Then ask the Lord, what is it that I can intercede for that takes that root of bitterness out? What is it that I can do to bring love and peace into the situation, because there's obviously a root of bitterness that grew up? And start praying over your children when they're asleep. When they're asleep, their spirit is awake, but their flesh is sleeping. And when their flesh is sleeping, you can speak to their spirit, declare over their spirit, and you're going to see things are going to be changing.
The other thing I wanted to just go back to, because we only have 3 minutes here, is Back on the bitterness one, wherever. Sometimes we haven't yet forgiven ourselves. And so if our child or whomever the other person is that keeps bringing it up is actually poking something in us that is irrelevant to their bitterness. Yes, we want them to forgive and to be free of that bitter root, but sometimes it's actually poking something in us because we haven't yet dealt with the Lord on the thing that we feel guilt and shame. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Vital that we recognize that sometimes that poking is actually showing, and the Lord is using that graciously to show us, wow, there's an area I need to forgive myself on.
And there's also then part of, I mean, there's so many things that we can only touch on some of them, but there's sometimes generational bitterness that can be in the family. And your kid just now is becoming active in that process. And it's really healthy to bring it right at the beginning. Again, the biggest thing is not to say, what's wrong with you? It's just really lovingly connect and ask questions. Ask questions that actually validate your child's opinions, validate their heart, validate who they are, because they are the future warriors, and it's not helpful to shame them, to guilt them, and bring them into a place where you become a superior person just because you have a better verbiage, and emotionally you're actually smothering your child, and spiritually you're not equipping them, you're actually mutilating them. And so that's not what we want. We want to actually equip your children. And in that, there is a lot of wisdom that is needed. You know, it's not going to be done by, okay, we gave you the 5 points and that's it. There is really a lot of wisdom needed, and a lot of it is talking to a lot of other parents, you know, talking to other parents and not being afraid of saying, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, or what do you think I should do here? I mean, we talked to tons of people raising our kids. I mean, it wasn't like, well, Marcus really did it. It was like Marcus and about 100 others did it, right? Because it's important to talk to other people. My thing was I wanted to do the best job possible for my kids. Actually, before I even had kids, I was talking to people constantly. When I was in college, I was talking to professors. My biggest thing is, how do I raise a daughter? What do I do with that? You know, how do I raise a daughter? And how do I raise a guy? What do I do? They gave me so much advice. When I would see them, I would constantly talk to them and say, so how would you do this? I wouldn't talk about much of anything. I would just talk about how do I raise kids? Because that was to me so important. Because I wanted to be a good dad. I wanted to be a good mom and dad with Susie. That was our heart. We wanted to raise good kids. And so the hunger to represent God was so big that before we even had kids, we were constantly asking. Susie was reading books like crazy and stuff like that, which was good. It's all good stuff. But you're hungry to do the right thing, and you talk to a lot of people, meaning. Maybe you have a different way how to do things, but maybe you want to ask some people, is that the right way to do it? And then we just go from there. So.